No, this is not an existential debate about whether or not our species is doomed to fail. It's a video game review. The video game in question can be played right now as part of the PlayStation Plus Extra Game Catalogue and is available on PS4, PS5 and both versions of PSVR. We're taking a look on PS5. This review will only be showing gameplay from the first handful of chapters and some user stages. As this is a puzzle game, it's not very fun if we spoil all of the answers for you. We cover a new game every week, so if you like what we do here, consider subscribing, and if there's a puzzle game you'd like to see a video on, comment below and let us know. And with that, we're asking the big question: is humanity worth your time? This was an extremely pleasant surprise. Humanity is simply a wonderful puzzle game. There is just so much depth and expansion on mechanics here, and it leads to some absolutely wild scenarios for you to play through. The core of the game is about getting a group of humans to a light goal. For some levels, you'll have a constant stream of the fellas. In others, humans will be a limited resource. On your way, you'll also have to collect goldies, which serve as a dual progression stream within the game. Each chapter is broken into a handful of puzzles, and you'll need to collect a certain amount of goldies in order to unlock the final trial and progress. However, collecting goldies also unlocks some bonus gameplay mechanics, stat pages, and tons of cosmetic options to change the look of humanity. I love this system. All of the gameplay stuff is contained within the start of the progression stream, so you'll unlock all of that whilst progressing the game, and the extra cosmetic options are super fun. Puzzles have a very dynamic feel about them. Because you have a constant stream of humans, you can see the effects of your puzzle solving in real time, and if something goes wrong, you can restart, choosing to keep or ditch your current solution. Later puzzles switch this up by having you create a path, then turn it on. And even later levels go bonkers with stealth missions, RTS sections, and even a few boss fights. The devs have put together a really solid set of base mechanics and run for the hills with them. Every single time I thought we were hitting the limits with the mechanics, there was always another surprise in store. Puzzles also have that X factor that makes a great puzzle game for me. I feel stupid initially looking at the puzzle for the first time, but by the time I've solved everything, I feel like a genius. The game is merciful though. If you are having an extremely tough time with a puzzle, there are solution videos you can watch. These solutions will get you to the goal, but won't always collect all of the goldies. I love this system too, as the hints aren't an instant win, but are a pointer in the right direction. On top of all of this, there's even a level editor and user-created stage library. This also includes some bonus levels from the dev team. The level editor tools are nice and simple and easy to learn. There is a little bit of clunkiness, but after a few minutes I got the hang of it. I'm not very good at designing puzzles, but the tools are there to make some really interesting levels that aren't necessarily puzzle based. I'm very excited to see what horrific creations the community can come up with. I do have some gripes. They're not big enough to knock a point off, but they are worth mentioning. First off, I think the fourth set of puzzles with the others is pretty weak in comparison to the rest of the game. This specific mechanic just didn't have the clear-cut nature of the mechanics seen in the rest of the game, and it made finding solutions a little frustrating. Secondly, some of the puzzles in the game can be very long and pretty easy to fail. Whilst there is a fast forward option, things can get a little frustrating if you have to keep restarting to iterate on your solution and then wait for that solution to be enacted. Overall though, humanity is a blast. This feels like a fresh puzzle game with extremely well thought out mechanics, and the alternate levels the devs have managed to put together managed to play extremely well. Of course, humanity gets the full 5 out of 5 for gameplay. Humanity looks fantastic, and is a wonderful example of a gameplay-led art direction. Almost every mechanic here is clearly illustrated to the player, and it is easy to make a plan that will succeed, or adapt should it fail. Stages all use the same blocky design, but through the use of some creative backgrounds and theming, each chapter manages to feel distinct in look. The hordes of humans look fantastic as they shuffle along, and once you complete a stage, it pulls back to let you really bask in the overhead view of your solution. Sound design is top notch. Grabbing a goldie and getting them to the finish line sounds immensely satisfying, and the stage complete audio is beautiful. The dog even barks. UI design goes one step above and beyond. It is wonderful. The stage select screen is nice and fluid and shows you the goldies you've collected. It is always very clear to see how you're navigating. Menu UI is simple yet clear. It is always easy to see what you want. I also really enjoy the ways that the stages present themselves with the big title text and spinning around so you can make a plan before things get chaotic. There was clearly a lot of care and attention put into the art direction on all fronts, with one major exception. I despise the soundtrack for this game, so much so that I actively turned it off. It's not a badly made soundtrack, but it's a terrible match for the gameplay. The aim here was to capture lo-fi, that stream we all listen to when trying to focus. Unfortunately, the result here is far too loud and uneven. Whilst the soundtrack was playing, I found it incredibly difficult to concentrate, and in the end, got annoyed enough to just mute it entirely. I think an OST in a similar style, but far less obtrusive, would have worked wonders, and it seems that that was what they were going for. For the most part, the art direction of Humanity is fantastic. There was so much effort put in to make things function well and look great at the same time, but that soundtrack really did get on my nerves, and thus the game ends up with a 4 out of 5 for art direction. This is about as existential as it gets. Without spoilers, the narrative of Humanity fits in well with the aesthetic and vibe of the game, even if it does stay a bit too vague for its own good. I'm noticing this narrative trend in a lot of indie games. There's not really much to talk about. The themes are profound, but not really focused on, and the narrative serves to push the gameplay into new directions, even if it is ultimately forgettable. We're a long way from the narrative highs of the Portal series, but that's not the end of the world when we're here for the amazing gameplay first and foremost. Humanity gets a middling 3 out of 5 for narrative. Humanity is a complete content offering with great settings. We experienced no bugs whilst playing. Content-wise, you're getting over 80 levels to sink your teeth into, alongside the extra unlockables. Add on the level editor and you've got almost infinite content. There's even a full stats page, so you can get all of the nitty-gritty details on your playthrough. Settings-wise, everything's pretty basic, but nothing's really missing. You can choose to play or skip cutscenes when you retry a level. Time controls can be set to activate via hold or toggle. You can enable or disable the option to keep commands upon retrying a stage. You can enable or disable cross-platform user stages. There are major language options. Camera can be inverted for each axis, as can camera sensitivity via sliders. Controller vibration can be enabled or disabled. There is a brightness slider. Background music and sound effect volume both have sliders. The settings here are very basic, but like I said, there's nothing really missing due to some great base game choices by the devs. Subtitle options would be nice, but the subtitles in-game are nice and readable, and don't move on to the next line until you press a button. This is very important as the game has no voice acting. Subtitles are the way that the story is directed to you. This is certainly not enough to knock a point off though. The rest of the game UI options are all nice and legible. At a baseline, the game is nicely accessible to a large audience, especially with the inclusion of the solution videos. Humanity gets a well-deserved 5 out of 5 for specs. It took me just under 9 hours to beat every stage in Humanity. I think this is a great length, as it allows each section of the game to breathe without becoming too overbearing. Puzzle length varies quite a lot, but I'd say that the average is between 5 to 15 minutes. The early game puzzles are naturally shorter as they're more simple, and as things get more complicated, they naturally become longer. However, it is very easy to hop in, do a puzzle or two, and then go about your day. Humanity is incredibly easy to fit into your free time. Hard drive footprint is tiny. Both PS4 and PS5 are asking for just over 5GB a piece. My only commitment gripe is that when you restart a level, you have to watch your humans shuffle along again. There is a fast forward button to help with this, which is a nice inclusion. Mostly though, this issue falls down to me as a person being impatient, rather than the game actively trying to waste my time. It is something to be aware of, but not big enough to knock a point off. I also really love that there is a reason to go back and get all of the goldies. It gives the game some extra replayability once you've beaten it. That is, if user-created levels aren't your thing. Map editors have always been my favourite way to add longevity to a game. Overall, Humanity has a wonderful respect for your time and hard drive, and gets the full 5 out of 5 on our commitment scale. Hooray! Humanity is worth your time after all. This is a wonderful puzzle game with so much love and care poured in. I can absolutely see it becoming a cult classic on account of it releasing at the worst possible time. With that in mind, I urge you to give this game a go. It is absolutely wonderful and a great brain buster. I cannot wait to see what this dev team does next, because they have absolutely knocked it out of the park.